What's up, replay folks? Ain't nobody live seeing this, so time once again for the Ask Me Anything. A few minutes here while we wait for everybody to jump on here, see who we get on, and see what sort of questions we got. As you're jumping on, just let me know. Let me know you're here. What is up, Mr. Zuckerberg? How you doing? All right, looks like we got people sort of jumping in now, so I'll do the little spiel. As usual, this is the weekly Ask Me Anything, where I'll try to answer any questions you guys have. What's up, Makoder? Juan, what's going on? I'll try to answer any questions you guys have. If I can't answer it, I'll just let you know that I can't. If you guys want to make sure your question gets answered, you can do the super chat thing. And as usual, during the what's up, Sean Shaw? Is it Seder? Is that how you say that? Seder Ramen. What's up, Joseph? Which state are you living in the U.S.? I live in Nebraska, home of the Cornhuskers. But like I said, ask me anything, and I'll try to answer the questions. Super chats, and then I did do the coupon code again. I did do the coupon code again this week, so you can use Radical to get 50% off anything in the store.johnmorrisonline.com during the live stream and for up to an hour. All right, looks like we got a few questions coming in. So, Tanzim, hello. What do you think? Do you think Gutenberg will just be a plugin? No, I think it's pretty much clear at this point that this is one of the things that when I started looking at it, was sort of new to me. That I didn't quite understand about Gutenberg, because it is a plugin right now, but that's just as it's in development. WordPress 5.0 will have Gutenberg in it, and Matt Mullenweg has said they will not roll out 5.0 until Gutenberg is done. So 5.0 is the Gutenberg update, and at that point, Gutenberg will be rolled into core, and it will be the default editor. And from everything I've seen, there will be no switching back and forth between Gutenberg and sort of the classic WordPress editor. It's just going to be Gutenberg. Now, I have seen a plugin out there already that will, as of right now anyway, it will disable Gutenberg. And so I'm sure there will be some of that available out there, where there will be plugins that'll sort of dismantle it if you want it to, and so forth. But as far as WordPress and WordPress core is concerned, they're rolling it into core. It's going to be the default and only editor that you can use when you go into pages and posts. And that's what, and I've seen a lot of people raise concerns with Matt and say they don't want it and try and fight it and so forth. And he's pretty much answered all of those, has an answer for all of those, and isn't turning back. So that's why I say, that Gutenberg, if you're in WordPress, involved with WordPress at all, Gutenberg is coming. There's no sort of stopping it, and it's best to just embrace it now and start learning it now, because it's not going to be one of those things for now that you're going to be able to sort of fight and deal with or not have to deal with. So it's coming. What are some good projects to have on your portfolio? Again, I'll go back to, I think I've got to ask this question about every live stream that I've done so far, and that's totally fine. But if you've been on all of these, it's going to be the same answer. I don't think that there are any standard, these portfolio items should be in your portfolio. And I'm thinking primarily in a freelancing context, because that's how the context that I primarily work in. And when you think of portfolio, that's generally the context you think it in, although you certainly could use it for getting a regular job in your resume. But I don't think having just standard stuff in your portfolio is the way to go. The way to go is to figure out what kind of projects. It goes back to this whole idea of a generalist versus a specialist. This is I used to talk about this a lot more, but people got sick of me talking about it, I think. But it really is the core sort of distinction that I think can change everything for you when it comes to freelancing, is going from marketing yourself as just a general web development provider. Because when you do that, you're going to find yourself working primarily hourly jobs, doing a lot of maintenance and fixing and that sort of thing, maybe not on near as many new projects as you would like to be. And you're often going to get paid less than what you want to get paid. Whereas when you make the switch from being someone who's a general provider to being someone who's a specialist, I build these specific things. I build membership sites. I build e-commerce sites. I build WordPress themes. I build custom blocks for Gutenberg, whatever. When you make that switch, then that's when you go to start working on more new stuff, getting paid more, doing more of the same thing sort of over and over again. And when you make that switch, which I think you should make that switch, I don't really think that's super optional. Obviously, you can do what you want, but if you really want to be a lot happier as a developer, make that switch. What should go in your portfolio item or in your portfolio are items that demonstrate that you know how to build that particular thing that you're saying you're going to build for people. So that's what should be in your portfolio. Which caching plugin do you recommend? Not W3 Total Cache. That one, best I can tell, it's not super supported anymore. I mean, maybe it is, but when I was using it, was hard to get a hold of anybody. It's really sort of complex and difficult. So not that one. I think I use, actually, I was using WCP Super Cache, but I host with SiteGround now. And SiteGround has a built-in caching plugin that they use, that they sort of give you for all of your WordPress sites. And it's really actually pretty good. So that's what I use now. But I would say Super Cache is probably the one that I used before that. So that'd be the one that I'd recommend. Gotta cut that great looking hair. Yeah, not gonna happen. I'm purposefully growing it out. What do you think about PHP and WordPress developers' career after Gutenberg? Well, so Gutenberg, I think, is primarily going to affect page builder, sort of themes and plugins and themes. The plugin market, I don't think, is going to be nearly as affected by Gutenberg, other than that you're going to have to adapt your plugins to work with Gutenberg because, for example, a lot of plugins add meta boxes to the post edit screen. Well, when Gutenberg is the default editor, those meta boxes in the way that they are now aren't going to exist. Now, there is some, and I'm still in the early stages of digging into the code behind Gutenberg, so I don't have quite all the answers on this, but there is something where you can sort of bring over legacy meta boxes, and I think they're going to have some backwards compatibility for that. But they are strongly recommending that you upgrade because that might not always be there. So you'd have to change your plugins in that sense. But if you look at like a SEO plugin, like WordPress SEO, a lot of what it does, really, there's some stuff on the post edit screen, but a lot of it doesn't happen on the post edit screen. So there's a lot going on in other places that really aren't affected by what Gutenberg is going to be doing. So I think the plugin market is going to be the least affected part of all of this. And so, if you're if you're someone that is doing that and are looking at Gutenberg, there's going to be plenty of room for PHP developers to write plugins, learn Gutenberg and write sort of custom blocks, be able to create themes that are, again, some of this isn't clear yet because their roadmap is in milestones. And right now it's just a page builder. But once they get that rolled out, it's going to move into a site builder. That's been sort of that's been said, but we don't know what that's going to look like. So I don't know what themes are going to look like exactly in that, but I imagine that themes are going to be able to have a sort of a certain kind of configuration of Gutenberg elements that you can put together and so forth. Sort of like you see with some other themes that are out there that do similar things. So anyway, I think there's still plenty of PHP work out there for WordPress developers after Gutenberg. However, Gutenberg does involve, it is primarily JavaScript. And in particular, it's built on top of React. And, JavaScript's the language I know least. I really haven't even ever messed with React. So I'm sort of in the same boat, and it's just one of those things, you just got to dig into it. So I think front end dev and UI UX would be my forte. Yeah, just if you're going to go that route, I sort of say this a lot, but dive into the design, right? Make sure you're good at making good designs, because that's a big thing that people are going to want from you. I'm a 17-year-old back-end web developer and launched my social networking site when I was 15. Currently, I'm learning machine learning and deep learning. What do you think of me? Sounds good. I mean, I would say don't worry about what I think of you. Worry about what you think of you. But I think if that's all true, you should be proud of yourself. That's pretty good. A lot further along than what I was. Do you think WordPress theme development will change after Gutenberg? So I kind of already talked about this, but yes, I mean, I do, not right away, because again, the milestones are, right now it's a page builder. Then they're going to sort of move into doing the site building thing. And that's when themes, I think, are going to be really heavily affected. In what way, I'm not sure yet, because they're still really heavily focused on just the page builder part of it. But yeah, I do think that they eventually will be, and I don't know exactly how yet. All right, what's up, Mark? A remedy. My camera's like right in the way. Let me move this actually. All right, there we go. SiteGround, do you use WP managed hosting, Big or Geek? I use the Geek. Yeah, so that's the one I use. Which do you prefer, web development or mobile development? I really don't do much mobile development, so I would say web development. And a lot of that is because, look, the one thing to understand about this is I'm old. So I started way back when there was no mobile development, and I spent most of my early years just doing web development. We didn't even think about mobile. So I've sort of have been way down that path, but if I were getting into it today, web development would definitely be a part of what I was doing. How do you feel working under someone, like a boss? Do you feel being a slave, not having freedom to do whatever you want, etc.? What are your thoughts? Yeah, so I sort of touched on this in the last live stream. I think there is, and I did a podcast on this a while back, but I do think that there is a fundamental difference. And it's not that somebody can't be both, but what you tend to find, I would say, is that people are more one or more the other. But I think there's a fundamental difference in thinking between someone who goes freelancing, embraces freelancing, loves freelancing, versus someone who prefers the other route of, working at a company or whatever. So when you ask me in particular how I feel about it, I do sort of feel those things. It's not something that having a boss and having to get up and put on a uniform, or whether it's an official one or just dress night, go to work, all that sort of thing. It's not really my thing. And I've specifically, worked and built and oriented the way I do things to not have to do that. So, yeah, that's exactly how I feel. And that is more important to me than security, right? Those are the two sort of competing values when it comes to deciding freelancing versus work. Is oftentimes regular jobs are associated more with security, whereas freelancing's associated more with freedom. I don't think those are 100% hard fast, but there's some truth to that. And so you sort of got to figure out what's more important to you, what you value more. And I don't think you're wrong either way, but you need to know what fits you best and then go that route. And of course, you can always do both. You just got to be careful not to get burnt out when you're doing that. What project should I make to get hired as an entry-level developer, from Ramon? So I sort of feel like a broken record on this one a little bit, but it's the same thing. What does the company want you to do? I'll go back to the example of Chris Sean, right? He applied for a project where they had this laundry list of things that they wanted to know, included Bootstrap, included PHP, there was a whole list of things that he had sent me, and he didn't know most of them. Most of them, he knew Bootstrap, or he had started learning Bootstrap, and so he had listened to one of the podcast episodes, and he decided to just go for it, and he spent some time figuring out what it is that they really wanted most, and figured out that was Bootstrap. And he went in and he dove into Bootstrap. He learned Bootstrap as best he could. He built a Bootstrap website to show to them. And then when he went into his interview, he just basically told him, look, I know Bootstrap. This is a Bootstrap site that I've built, blah, 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 blah. And he got hired. So it really comes down to what is the company after? What do they really want? And being able to go beyond just what they list and sort of try and figure out what it is that they're really after, to try and read what the job sort of description is, research the company, their values, that all that sort of thing, and try and figure out what it is that they're really after, what matters most to them, and put that in your portfolio. If you do want some general stuff, I mean, as a PHP developer, being able to work, maybe being able to work with a framework like Laravel is probably something I would guess. Again, I'm primarily freelancer, so some of this stuff I don't necessarily have the best answers for, but I would assume that that's something that people are probably after when it comes to working at companies. So something along those lines, maybe writing your own little framework would be something good to have, a CMS, that sort of thing. Those tend to be things that are okay across the board, but it really comes down to what company you're applying to. What advice would you give someone who is starting out as a freelance UI UX designer and WordPress developer? What are some good strategies to get clients? Okay, so if you're a designer, the thing is I think designers have an advantage, and the reason why is because visual appeal, especially right now, it's really sort of the trump card. And so, and a lot of the ways that you would go out there to promote yourself and get attention and so forth revolve around visual appeal. And I'm specifically in my head thinking about Instagram. And I had someone who said they were an illustrator, I think last week or the week before, ask a similar question. And again, you have an advantage because those things they're so predicated on visual appeal. And so you can start building an audience of people that are interested in, I mean, if you go on Pinterest, there are Pinterest boards all over the place that they're basically Photoshop, they're JPEGs, but they're basically made in Photoshop that show different web design layouts. And you'll find probably tens of thousands of these. And I used to just go through and I would just look at them, and I had this whole feed of just web design templates that I would just go through and use to get ideas and so forth. And there are plenty of people out there that do that same sort of thing. And if you get the right people following you, and you're smart about not trying to attract necessarily other developers, other designers, but people that would actually hire you. So if, for example, you want to make WordPress sites and designs for real estate agents, so you don't put out an e-commerce template, you put out real estate agent website templates, and you start going and trying to get those people to follow you, and you're putting out that sort of stuff on, say, Instagram and so forth, then you can build up a following of people. Or you could do a YouTube where you show people different design things for their real estate agent websites, and you build up a following that way on Twitter and so forth. You have to start building your following. This day and age, it's really, really difficult to be a freelancer without doing that. I mean, there's some people that can get away with that. You see some people on Upwork who don't necessarily have a big following outside of it that get a lot of work. But a lot of those people started there early on and have been there for a while. And so that's how they were able to do it. They got in at the ground floor. So if you're going to get in now, you really have to start building an audience. And as a designer, you have an advantage in that sense, because you can give people the thing that they really want, which is visual appeal. And then every so often in your Instagram or your YouTube or whatever, you just throw out an ad. I'm offering 20% off my web design services, right, for the next 3 clients or whatever. And do that and just keep growing the audience, and then using every so often monetizing it, getting people to hire you and so forth. You'll get people to trickle in anyway, but that can be a way that you can sort of a catalyst to get you even more. So thanks so much for your motivation. No problem. Just want to know from your experiences working in a small company with a small salary, where to just get enough budget and run your own business. I think it can be a good stepping stone. That's exactly, I mean, again, mine was a little quasi, but I started out with a small company as a freelancer, and then moved into an employee, then moved back out to freelancing. But it can be a really good stepping stone. So I talked about this last time, but people, I think, underestimate all the other stuff that you have to deal with when you're a freelancer outside of just the actual thing that you do, like building websites. You got to getting clients, managing projects, dealing with your own sort of productivity and procrastination, work-life balance, all that sort of thing. So there's a lot to learn if you've never done any of it before. And a good way to get that experience is to go to a company that does something similar to what you ultimately want to do with your business. Learn their processes, learn how they do it, get some experience doing it yourself, develop your own routines and systems and processes that you can use for delivering, for marketing, all that sort of thing, and then use that to help spur you in your own business. And I think in some ways, taking a job where it's maybe a smaller company and a smaller salary can actually be beneficial for you if you're ultimately wanting to go into running your own business and freelancing or whatever. Because sometimes if you get a big salary, it's hard to walk away from that into your own business. And so if you're not making as much, it's a little bit easier to walk away. So it can actually be a benefit in that way. I'm not saying that's 100%, it's just totally better, but there can be some advantages to it. I don't really have anything for you, Makoder, on the ARIA and accessibility stuff. So let's see. You sell your courses with WooCommerce. Are they still downloadable zips? Yes. Will you add an LMS to your sites? Probably not. Why did you decide not to use a learning platform such as Udemy, Teachable, etc.? Well, I do have some of my courses over on Udemy. The thing is those sites are their own. This is one of the things that I've learned having courses on Udemy and Skillshare and CyberU and a couple other places, is each one of those is sort of its own community, and they have their own sort of way that the students like to learn. And so for me, where I'm putting my stuff on my own site, I'm putting it on Skillshare, I'm putting it on Udemy. What I've noticed is that it's really hard to make one course that works well for the people on each of those individual sites. So like Udemy, they like really big, sort of big box 400 lecture courses. Whereas over on Skillshare, they like really small, maybe 1 hour courses, maybe 6 or 7 lessons that are, 5 to 10 minutes a piece, and so forth. And so sort of managing all of that gets a little difficult. And so I still do it and I try to make it work, but to be honest, my courses don't do as well on Udemy as they probably could if I only did Udemy, and they don't do as well on Skillshare as they probably could if I just did Skillshare, and et cetera, et cetera. But I have a way that I like to teach, and I think it works for people. And so I'm just going to teach that way. And I really don't have much of a desire to, so sound a little arrogant, I know, but I don't have much of a desire to change the way I structure the courses and the way I'm teaching for each one of these individual platforms. I think there's a segment of people out there that the way that I teach things, they really learn really well from it. And I'm fine with that. That's who I want to deal with. And so selling off my own site is ultimately the best way to go for me. So where are you from? I live in the United States. I live in Nebraska. Can't really do any tech questions because I don't have screen share. Can you show us the interface you use to send us emails? Just curious. I don't have the screen share on this, but it's Aweber. So if you just look up Aweber, you can see that it's a pretty standard common service that's out there. Have you been to the dark, deep webs? Not really. I mean, yeah, sure. I guess at different points I've seen different things, but nothing crazy. How to fetch sound like after learning React, which framework to go for next? Again, me personally, I'm not big into the learning for learning's sake thing, at least not anymore. So, I mean, if you're going to learn React, what I know of React, you can do most of the things that you want to do. So I don't know that there's necessarily a reason to go into another framework. I mean, Vue.js is out there. It's one I messed with that was pretty cool. But I wouldn't get too caught up in the learning just for learning's sake, because I think that can be a trap that keeps people from moving into, hey, I learned this thing, now let me go start doing this for work and making a living doing it, versus just sort of getting stuck in this constant rut of learning more and more and more and more things, thinking once I learn enough, then I'll go get the job, when every time that comes up, you end up finding something else to learn. And I say that because I did this. So I don't think there's anything, there's no hard, fast rule about what to do next. Follow what you like doing, what you want to do. What's your advice for people who live in countries where skilled jobs pay as equal to skilled jobs like web dev, for example? I think you mean unskilled jobs pay as much as skilled jobs. Well, so I've never lived in a country like that. So my advice on it could be completely ignorant, and I'm aware of that. But we do live in a much more global marketplace than we have. So there are people who all over the world who are willing to pay more for web development services and sort of these skilled services, you might say, than generally you would pay for unskilled stuff. So I think the people are out there to be found. I know that it sometimes can be more difficult if you live in a country where maybe it's not as valued as it is in some other countries and so forth. I don't know that there's necessarily a hard, fast rule about how to deal with that. And I probably wouldn't know it if there was, because I've never had to experience it. But my advice would sort of break down to the same thing that it always goes back to, is focus on end results. Because when you get really good at delivering a specific end result, people care a lot less about where you're from. All that stuff only really ever comes into play when you're sort of marketing yourself as a general web development specialist, and they're looking at a group of 30 people or 40 people that they could hire from, and now they're trying to nitpick every little detail and so forth. When I was building membership sites, when I was heavy into freelancing, building membership sites for people, I never had anybody ask me where I was from. I never had anybody ask me how many hours I worked on this or that. They didn't care. What they cared about was the end result that I was delivering for them. So I think the more it's not 100% that you can just completely remove yourself from all of those problems. I get that. But the more you move that route, the more you go that way, then the less and less you're going to have to deal with that stuff, in my experience. Again, I don't live in a country like that. So I can't 100% tell you the exact answer, but that would be, if I were in that situation, that's what I would do. Thought you made the mailing interface yourself. Nah. I say this a lot. I'm old. I've been, it's almost 14 years now that I've been doing this. I don't write code I don't need to write. So I'm not in that mode of just writing code for writing code's sake. That's just not. So if there's a service out there, I mean, I pay $20 a month for it. And I don't have to even worry about it. So yeah, I don't mess with it. Makes sense to concentrate your efforts on one platform, your own. Yep. Do you recommend something like Joomla as a management system for freelancers? I guess I don't understand in what sense you mean as a management system for freelancers. I guess there's probably some stuff in it, but yeah, I mean, I don't really have anything on that. I don't use Joomla really all that much, and I'm not sure exactly how you would use that as a management system. I'm sure you could, but advice for a 40+ web developer wanting to move into web development. Yes. So everything that I talk about, everything that I've ever said about specialization, end results, not learning for learning's sake, all of that stuff for you is heightened. It's even more important because, you're not 20 years old. You don't have, 60 years or whatever it is to figure it out. And you probably have, I'll assume that you maybe have a family, or you have certain responsibilities that you have to meet a certain amount of income and so forth. So again, everything along those lines is heightened, and it's even more important for you to not get off track. And so the thing I recommend for you is to, whatever you're doing now and you want to move into web development, before you make the move, figure out what it is that you're going to deliver for people and how you're going to do it. When I talk about end results, figure that out before you do anything else, before you start learning any code, before you download a text editor, before you do any of that. Think hard and decide on something that you're going to deliver for people. I know that can be hard but take the time to do it and do the hard work and figure it out before you do anything else. Then only learn what you have to learn in order to be able to deliver on that particular thing, right? You're not the 21-year-old who can spend time learning all of these other fancy things that are out there that have nothing to do with what you're going to be delivering on for people. Only learn what you need to learn in order to deliver on that. And then once you're in a place where you feel like you can confidently deliver, that's when you start making that move, trying to get into doing client work or getting a job or whatever, so that you have the skills to deliver on that very specific thing. And that's going to cut your learning time way down. That's the biggest thing, is to take your learning time and cut it to as little as possible. And then once you're in the industry and you're, working freelance and whatever, then that's when you can expand your skills. But even then, still be smart, still be strategic about it, because you just don't have near as much time to waste. The flip side of that is that if you're 40+ years old, I assume that you've worked in some sort of career, or maybe, different jobs and so forth. You've had some sort of career and life experience. That stuff matters. That's still going to serve you in web development. And so that's going to be an advantage for you. Make sure and leverage those advantages. See them as advantages, leverage them as advantages, and take advantage of those things, because you have an upper hand when it comes to that thing over someone who's just coming out of college or is new to this thing, new to work in general and so forth. You've sort of been there, done that. So take advantage of that stuff. All right. Also, can you be both a developer and a designer? I think most of the time people are developers who are okay with design, or designers who are okay with code. I mean, I don't know. I would say, me personally, I don't know anybody that's just amazing, great at both, or has their heart in both. And I'm just trying to think in general out there of people I've heard of or whatever. I think you're either, your core is one and you can be good at the other, but rarely do you find someone who's just their heart's in both. They're all in on both. They're just amazing and great with both. But you can do both. Like, if you're asking, can you do both? Sure. How to fetch data from it. Yeah, again, I can't do the technical stuff. Let's see. Udemy's VC business takes advantage of course developers who don't sell at substantial volumes, such as team graduates for long term. There are more advantages selling from a site. All right. I mean, I didn't really know that, but that's good to know. Is sacrificing 1 or 2 years to master your domain, web dev or mobile dev or whatever, and go slowly worth it to reach your goals? Only 20 years old and already started doing that. Any motivation? Yeah, so this is one of the things that I think a lot of people, this is me, again, point at myself when I first started learning how to code, but I think it's a big mistake a lot of new developers make, which is trying to go so fast and trying to learn all of these different things. And I got to do this and I got to be a whiz kid and I got to. Slowing down is absolutely worth it, because what often happens is you go so fast that you miss web development. And again, my experience is it's doing 90 things or 50 things of this certain group of things over and over and over and over and over again. And then every time you do that, there's maybe 5% or 10% that's new that you got to learn. But it's these core fundamental things, whether it's concepts, skills, whatever, that you just do over and over and over and over and over again. So knowing those really well, getting proficient with those, knowing those to a mastery level where you're building applications or websites or whatever that are easy to manage, that are feature rich, that are scalable, they're performant. That stuff is far more important than learning all of this fancy stuff that's out there, in my opinion. So going slow, learning fundamentals so you don't have to come back and learn them, which ends up taking longer anyway, I think is the way to go. So absolutely, I would recommend everybody could probably, unless you're old like I am, then I think everybody could probably do to slow down just a little bit. I'm already going slow enough. So let's see, people have different needs and interests at different phases in their life. When you're young, you're more likely to not accept these ideas. Yeah, tell me about it. I'm very much guilty of that. Okay, I didn't get the. I'm not going to do individual Upwork reviews on here, especially since nobody will be able to see them. Could you please describe to us more deal how much time you or a freelancer spend on other stuff besides the primary profession? Developers need marketing, education, job negotiation, etc. So there's two things. There's how much time you actually spend on it and how much time you spend worrying about it. And for me, I spent probably 90% of my time worrying, focused on thinking about how to get work. That far and away dominated my freelance experience. That's the biggest thing that I think you sort of deal with. Delivering on the projects for me was the easy part. So that's one of the other things that you'll spend a lot of time thinking about, but it's a little bit different because you actually do. Again, for me, I spent most of my actual I would say not the majority, but the plurality of my time actually delivering on the projects because they just took time. So the actual time I spent doing stuff was on delivering on projects because they would just take time. But what I thought about and worried about and was constantly trying to figure out was always the marketing, getting work side of things. And then you have all these little nagging things like taxes and, money management and all that sort of stuff that making sure you're complying with the laws in your state and the insurance that they just sort of, it's hard to quantify, but they just sort of leech away time from you. So I'm a full-time developer working currently on blockchain, and we work as a team of about 5 people. Problem is we have so many invitations, we're not able to take all the project. Well, that's a good problem to have. How does one expand with freelance jobs? Okay, so I think there's 2 things that you can do. The one will be obvious, and the other one maybe not as much. So how do you expand? Well, you hire more people, right? I mean, that's the obvious one. Or you start you either hire people or you add more people to your team. So if you have a team of 5 people, I'll assume that you guys are sort of like the management, the owners of this thing. Okay. So you can hire people who they're not owners, they just work for you, or you can outsource to people who can do parts of what you do for you to help free up some time. And again, I think that's the obvious one, and maybe the one, since you're asking, that you might not want to do. The other one is you can charge more, and that'll actually cut down on the amount of people that are going to be inviting you to projects and projects you're going to be doing, while at the same time you making the same and oftentimes even more money than you are now. So if you're truly in a place where you're getting more invitations than you can deal with, then raising your price is a really, really easy way to deal with that and still make the same amount of money and not have to work on near as many projects. Can you build a simple OOP PHP MVC with user authentication and roles permission? It'd be really good for learning. My login script course has all that except the roles and permissions. So it's built an object-oriented programming, has user login, like registration, login, authentication. So johnmorrisonline.com/login script. Any advice for someone beginning freelance web dev while working a full-time job and still trying to stay sane? Been learning for a while and just filed my LLC today. Yeah, I feel like this feels like a question that maybe have you asked me this before? Because this feels I'm having some deja vu here. Anyway, beginning freelancing dev while working a full-time job. So yeah, I mean, again, your biggest asset, the thing that you're going to struggle with the most, is time. I feel like I've answered this before, but the big thing that you can do to deal with that is to not be afraid to outsource. If you're working a full-time job, I'll assume that you have a little bit of money you can play with. If you're going to start a business, you do need to invest in it. Set aside a certain amount of money each month, or a certain percentage of each project that you can use for outsourcing, or you can use for hiring other people, or using money in some way, right? Gosh, I can't remember who said this, but this is one thing I've always kept in mind. You basically have 3 things that you can leverage: time, money, and effort. Well, if a lot of your time and effort is being spent towards a full-time job, that means you're going to have to leverage some of your money towards building your business. So that would be, don't be afraid to do that, because that small investment, whatever it is, can pay huge dividends in the long run, and getting you from doing something, working a full-time job that sounds like you probably don't like, towards working something that you do like. In terms of staying sane, I talk about this, and I have a course where I talk about this, the No BS Guide to Get More Done. But one of the things that you can do is when a lot of people, when they make to-do lists or task lists or whatever, they just sort of lump everything together. And they're actually, if you start to really think about the things that you do on a daily basis, you can sort of break them up into several different categories. 2 of the big ones are things you have to do, and then things you want to do. Okay. And the things you have to do are often things you don't want to do, but you're going to, like, I got to mow the lawn at some point today. I have to do that. I don't want to do it, but I have to do that. Okay. Those things can be the things that really suck the life out of you, because you often just want to, you want to procrastinate on those, not do those. And then you want to try and get to the things that you want to do. Or oftentimes what we'll do is do the things that we want to do and then neglect the things that we have to do. Or we'll be really responsible, do the things we have to do, but never do the things that we want to do, and we get burnt out and so forth. You have to get really good at making the distinction between what you have to do and what you want to do. And then what I do is, the very first thing in the morning, I go hard at that list of things I have to do, and I get them done and off my plate and out of the way as much as I can, so I don't have to think about them anymore, and try to get that done in an hour or 2 a day, instead of letting it drag me down and sort of weigh me down. And the more you attack those things what you'll find is the next day you don't have near as many of those things. And after a while, you start having almost none. And then you get to the point where you can spend all of your time doing the things that you want to do. You're a lot more motivated. You're a lot happier. You're a lot more energetic. You get a lot more done that way. So being ruthless about understanding what those things are and separating them out and attacking them in different ways. Maybe for you, attacking the things you have to do right away in the morning isn't the way to go. Maybe it's doing the things that you want to do, but figure that out, separate those two things. And when you do, it just helps you get a lot more clear on what you got to do for the day. When you first started, how did you deal with the frustration of tutorial code not working and not have anyone to ask for help? Well, I'm probably going to sound a little ignorant on this one, but I don't really have expectations of other people, like in general, not just with coding and web development. So I never viewed it as a thing where, hey, I tried this and I'm frustrated and nobody will help me, and just sort of going down that road. That really was never a thing that's never the way that I approached it. And to be honest with you, when I started way back in the day, the frustration was sort of the opposite, is in that there wasn't a lot out there. There were things out there sometimes that you were trying to learn how to do. There was nothing there. You just you had to sit there and mess with things and try and figure it out. So again, not having expectations of other people is a really good way to deal with that. And then I think another way that you can deal with that, and that's sort of why I talk about this at different times, is, if you want someone who is going to put effort into creating a tutorial for you, being there to answer questions for you, to give you that level of service, you have to be willing to give them something, right? You wouldn't do that for free. You can say you would, but a lot of people like to say that, and the reality is they'd sit down and do it for 5 minutes and it wouldn't happen. So you have to be willing to invest in people if you want them to invest in you. So that's why I've always thought, paid courses that you could take over on Udemy or wherever, or, people sites like mine, whatever, that's the way that you sort of make sure that you can have someone there that'll be there and has an incentive to want to help you. You can't just always be asking for stuff from other people and never giving them anything in return. And this is going to, again, come across like a sort of a dick, but watching their videos isn't, consuming their content that's not enough. I guess I would say, right? That a lot of people sort of think, well, I watch your stuff. Okay, great. But it just, that's not, you have to be willing to invest at a deeper level if you want them to invest in you. All right. As a fresh graduate, I'm kind of struggling to explain to my parents that I need time to review and retain skills for the jobs I want. What would you do if you were in my position? So again, this is sort of a tough one for me, because when I graduated high school, I was home for about a week and I moved out, and I never moved back in with my parents. I'm not saying that you live with your parents or anything, but I was home about a week, about enough to pack my stuff, and I was gone, and I never moved back in with my parents. I don't ask my parents for advice. My parents give me unsolicited advice. I really don't care what they think. So my advice to you would be to ignore your parents. Now, if you're in a position where you can't do that, then work to get out of that position as best that you can, and get out on your own, so you don't have to care what they think. You don't have to listen to them. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to hate your parents or never talk to your parents. Just when they start giving you unsolicited advice, you can be, hey, stop. I'm good. I don't need it. Or you can listen, and if they have a good point, take it. Or if you don't agree with what they have to say, then you can tell them to stop. But it's never been a thing where I cared what their opinions on what I was doing was. And that sort of has to do with how I grew up and so forth. And there's some more stuff to that. But who cares at the end of the day? If you know what you're doing, or you think you know what you're doing, And to be honest, if your parents are, if they're adults at all, they will understand that while they want to try and help you and they want to try and show, sometimes you got to learn things the hard way. Like I do that with my kids all the time. I tell my kids, I'll tell them once, and then after that, if they got to learn the hard way, then they got to learn the hard way. And I'm not going to sit there and browbeat them, trying to stop them from learning the hard way when inevitably they're going to do it anyway. So again, I would just ignore them if you can. Oh, you must be talking about the old remark. Nah, man, you're good. Let's see. I scrolled down too far. Holy cow. Todd McLeod has transitioned from selling courses on Udemy to developing Greater Commons, which serves the needs of course developers. I'll check that out. It's taking with you pre-built cool projects instead. A damn degree can absolutely get you the job against to have current certificate during the interview. I would say so. Let's see. The title says, ask me anything, but you haven't answered my previous simple question. Is there any limitation to ask questions? No, it's just ones I can answer in this format. So I think you're asking coding questions. Like I said at the beginning, you can ask me anything. I don't know that I'll have a good answer for you. If it's a coding question, I'm not going to have a good answer for you because I don't have a screen sharing on here right now. So, and I may never do that. So I see the Batman logo. All right, looks like there's just a lot of conversation here. I started your No BS guide to get more done. It's great. Just need more time. Yeah, right? Got to have time to take it. Well, good. I hope you enjoy it. Is working for free for 3 months as a test for you and a company worth it? So if you are good, you stay or get out. I think that's a statement. I'm not sure that's a question. Udemy course will teach me how to make a social networking site. No, I don't do that in that one. Thanks for the Gutenberg stuff. No problem. Tell me something about how to make a social networking site where people come register, sign in, and chat with each other and in groups. Okay, well, let me try and do a tech answer here then. And I'm not going to be able to show you any code, but I actually got this question. I can't remember where it was the other day, but the biggest thing is when you're building any application like this, a lot of people want to dive right into the code, but you actually need to step back first and figure out what data you're going to need to collect in order to have your application do what it needs to do. So your data model, your database structure, your object model, all of those things need to come first before you write any code. Then you can do, once you have that down and understand how your objects are going to be constructed, what sort of data you're going to collect about each object, what meta tables you need, what relationships tables you need. Once you have that all down and you sort of have your object model in your application to match it, the rest of the code sort of writes itself because it's a matter of just connecting the two things. And so for any application that you're going to build, start with the data. Let the data drive the building of the application because ultimately that's the thing that matters. That's what people are going to be consuming. They're going to be posting. That's the thing that matters in the application for the end user. Learning WordPress development after Gutenberg is wrong decision? No, nope. There's going to be plenty of development to go around. And this is one of the things I said in my Gutenberg video that I did. There are people out there, right? Gutenberg is going to make it easy to build pages, but there are people out there that aren't going to want to do that. You never I'm trying to remember exactly how this guy said this, but I was watching this video the other day and he says, never underestimate the human capacity for needs and wants. and something along those lines. And essentially, what he was getting at is that every time something happens to make things easier for us in some way, we then raise the bar and want it to be even easier, or we want it to do even more. Like, our capacity to want more is limitless. So, because of that, there's always a gap between what's possible and what's easy. And there will always be that gap. And so Gutenberg is raising the floor, but along with that, the ceiling is going to get raised. That's where you as a developer, that's where you as a WordPress developer getting into WordPress development, that's where you can exist. Gutenberg or no. All right. Is it true that Upwork is now filtering new freelancers? Yes. They don't accept everybody, if that's what you mean. So that's absolutely true. That's why, and they didn't, in my experience, what I knew of it for a long time, they didn't do that. So that was sort of a new thing. That's why I've had to tell people, I've had to sort of change and tell people that when you're first starting over on Upwork and trying to get approved, you need to actually make your profile a broad profile, list a bunch of skills and tags just to try and hit the right thing. And then once you're in, niche it down and be specific so you can actually get work. You said that projects looking for freelancers that have not spent anything yet are best avoided. Yes and no. I mean, so it's not. I don't want to. I read this thing the other day that I felt like they had read something of mine and were responding to it, because it was aimed at specifically something I had said, but sort of misconstrued it. So it's never, don't ever bid on something. Okay. I want to make sure that's clear. Like, when you're over on Upwork or whatever, it's not that you don't bid on projects where they haven't paid anybody in the past. Like, you never do that, because sometimes that can be someone who's new to Upwork or a client who just up to that point hasn't spent a bunch, and then they hire you, they have a good experience, they hire you again and again and again, and next thing you know, you're getting all tons of work from them. So it's not that you never do that. However, what I describe is a process. And that process, it only makes sense to start with the most ideal projects first and try those. Now, what I see sometimes is people say, well, I've got all these filters and I'm not finding any work. Well, then you expand your filters to the point, if you have to turn them all the way off and go through the news feed or the project feed just raw, then do that. So you don't use filters that they stop you from looking at projects. You start with the most ideal ones first, the ones that are most likely. It's about stacking the odds in your favor, putting the probability in your favor. And the probability, obviously, is if someone has spent $100,000 as a client on Upwork, they're probably going to pay you come the end of the project, versus someone who has spent zero. You don't know. It's more risky. So start with the ones that are the most likely to be the most ideal for you. And then, if you have to expand out from there. So it's not that you don't ever bid on those jobs. It's that you start with the really, really ideal good ones and then move out. How to join Google? I have no idea. Which is more practical, PSD to HTML or PSD to Bootstrap? It sounds like a trick question. So I've been working as IT in different fields for almost 9 years. Now I'm interested in starting front-end web development. Please advise me where to start and what to learn. Well, I mean, I think the foundation of web development, and I get some flack on this, but I think it's still true right now. And I know usage statistics aren't 100% true, and there's caveats to all of it. But if you look at usage statistics, if you're gonna look at some numbers, it seems like those ought to be a part of it. You can look at the Tiobe index and some of the other things that they do, but they do search engine results. So to me, and you can look at Indeed for jobs. That's another good place as well to use. But if you're going to look at hard numbers and data, then HTML, CSS, JavaScript, PHP, and MySQL, the data we do know about usage, they are still the dominant languages. They're still on the majority of sites, even with all the fancy new stuff that's come out. Not saying that won't ever change, but people have been saying that these things are dead for how long now, and they're still out there. So, in my opinion, you should focus on those sort of core things first. Those are, to me, the core of web development. That doesn't mean that you don't ever go out and learn a Node or an Angular or a React or a whatever, right? You can add those too, but I think you start with the core things and then move out from there. So you say front-end web development. I would start then with HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, and design. I'll just keep harping on that. Design, design, design. Visual appeal right now is huge. You can have the fact of the matter is you can have really crappy code, and if it looks good, then I'm not saying you should do that, but the reality is that you'll probably be fine. So visual appeal, design, they're going to be paying you to know design and visual appeal. They're also going to be paying you primarily for JavaScript and being able to do the stuff that you can do in JavaScript. You're probably going to want to learn something like React because of how popular it is if you're just going to do front-end web development. All right. I learned PHP, but where practice Angular 5 the best frame? Okay. I mean, as far as practicing, you just start thinking of stuff to build and start building it. It's as important. This is one thing. It's as important to be able to come up with ideas for things to build as being able to build them. And I think, I won't harp on it too long, but I think as you go throughout your career, you'll find that to be true. Aim for the bullseye. You should at least hit the board. You should watch my brother play darts. You know that's not true. All right. I just discovered yesterday that I actually created an account with Upwork a couple years ago. So I guess I'm passing the acceptance screening already. Thanks, reply those who haven't spent anything. Yeah, that's nice. I mean, you're in, so you don't have to worry about it. So looks like that's the end of the question so far. So if you guys have, I guess we're at about an hour. Geez, that went fast. So if you guys have any more couple questions, go ahead and drop those in there. I'll try to answer those real quick. If you do me a favor, make sure and hit the like button so that I can help promote this video and so forth and keep doing this sort of thing. It actually helps. The thing about these live streams, and I love doing them just to sit down and talking with you. Like I said last week, sitting down and talking with you guys. It also really, really helps my channel. So if you guys wouldn't mind doing that, I would really, really appreciate it. Also, as I said, the coupon code that I made for you guys for the live stream is still active. It'll be active for another hour after this is done. You can go to store.johnmorrisonline.com for that, and the coupon code is RADICAL. So just type that in at checkout, and you'll get 50% off anything in the store. All right, one really quick one. How to apply for jobs in Upwork when everyone is looking for experience, guys. Same, I mean, I'm going to harp on it again. Be a specialist. The thing is people want the right person for their project. So there's this relevance element to it. So they don't just go out there, and Upwork's algorithms support this. We know this because of the way their algorithms work, because their algorithms are meant to support the way that clients want to hire people. So they don't just go out there and okay, who has the most experience? All right, here's well, they look at, has this person ever built anything relevant to what I want built? Experience is not general, it's nuanced. So it's not that they want someone that has 15 years of experience. It's that they want someone who has built a lot or really done really well or whatever, who has a lot of experience building the specific thing that they want built. Now, when you understand that, you don't have to have been a web developer for 12 or 13 or 15 years. Okay, what you need to demonstrate to them that you have built the thing that they need built before, and you can do it for them. And you can do that very, very simply with a portfolio. And it doesn't have to be a portfolio full of projects that that you've done for clients. It can be a portfolio you make specifically to put in, or items you make specifically to put in your portfolio to demonstrate to them that you have that experience. So that's how you can beat people who have more general experience, is by being specific and having more specific, nuanced experience. And I mean, from the day I went on Upwork and changed my profile to start doing this, I still didn't have any jobs. I didn't have any job history. That hadn't changed. But from the day that I made that switch and started doing it that way, it just fundamentally changed the experience that I had on Upwork, and started getting work right away, and so forth. So, all right, can you please make small projects on Oops PHP? Yeah, I mean, I plan on doing some more PHP stuff. So, can we earn money from freelance when we are new? Yep. Yeah, I mean, it's sort of what I feel like I sort of just answered that question. So you just have to, it's a competition. So you have to outcompete people. And if you can't compete with them here, right, it's like, think of a football team, American football, real football. If a team has a really good run defense, then you don't just bang your head against the wall against their run defense, right? You try passing the ball and try and loosening up that run defense and doing things that they're not good at. Okay. It's the same thing with freelancing. You're in a competition with the other freelancers. So what are your weaknesses? What are your advantages? What are their weaknesses? What are their advantages? How can you minimize their advantages, take advantage of their weaknesses, take advantage of your advantages, minimize your weaknesses, all that sort of thing. So if experience isn't your thing, skill could be your thing. Or, you're a good communicator could be your thing, or service level could be your thing, or specialization could be your thing, right? It's a competition. And so you have to have an idea of who you're competing against, and don't try to compete against somebody at something that is their strength and your weakness. That's not going to work out well for you. Compete with them in a different way. So, all right. So yeah, like I said, it's been an hour 7. I'm getting text from my wife here asking if I'm done, so I better jump off here. So again, appreciate everybody jumping on. Like I said last week, I really, really enjoy these. Love interacting with you guys, and again, doing these really helps the channel and so forth. So I appreciate you guys jumping on. Again, if you wouldn't mind hitting that like button, I'd really appreciate that. All right, that'll do it for this one. We will talk to you again next week.